Hello again, everybody. This is Sandhya, and welcome to Eat with Sandhya. 10 days of 10 meals sharing, because I myself have not enjoyed eating by myself every single day. So 10 days of sharing meals, stories, and lessons around food. Some of the back to basics really around food, eating, and our relationship with which is arguably one of our earliest relationships that we've ever formed. Today, I will be speaking a little bit about veganism, some of which are my thoughts around it, my personal preferences, how I eat on different meals, but also how you can make choices and what you might want to base your choices on, if at all. So I'll start by saying that I'm not one of those people that was born vegetarian. So my family did eat everything, in fact. I will say that I've always been a child that was a little conscious about my body, for sure, but also about suffering in the world around me. So I would say if there was the biggest motivator, but I also loved my food, and I did have very much of a scarcity mindset. So anything that seemed exotic or new in terms of food, I certainly was fascinated by it. Now, why I turned vegan was really a gradual process. I stopped eating meat literally to keep my roommates company when I was 18. They were vegetarian. I wanted to sit on their half of the hostel, and so that's when I stopped eating meat. And post that, while I cooked meat for others, and I had no ideological conflict with or like no judgment of people that did eat it, I personally did not eat it myself. I did eat seafood, partly because I did like it, and also because I was worried about health. We didn't know for sure then, and all of us believed that we needed to get our protein from animal sources. That eternal question of where do vegans get their protein from? And of course, culturally, we eat a lot of curd as South Indians. Yes, as stereotypes go, and I certainly was no exception to that rule. However, over time, I realized pretty conclusively, the science is now pretty out there and evidence-based, that we don't in fact need animal protein for health. We might choose to eat it for several other reasons, and in fact, I don't recommend veganism or complete abstinence from dairy or meat or eggs to everybody, especially if they're struggling with health issues of particular kinds, where getting a nutritious meal is more important to them than making choices for ethical or esoteric concerns, including health reasons, right? Sometimes meat could occasionally be easier for some people to get, and maybe a more readily available source of protein that they might not otherwise have access to. So for example, in some programs they do distribute eggs, for example, and I always encourage the people to say, you know what, just swallow it. And this brings us to the other part of what I wanted to speak about today. Sometimes we have a lot of religious and ideological conflicts within ourselves. So how do we resolve some of these? I will start by saying that the first idea to consider is that there are no absolute rights or wrongs to anything. We might have diktats from religious leaders, from religious books, from our parents, our own ideological beliefs that, this is good and this is bad and this is a sin and this is crime. But I'll quote Bertrand Russell, who said that sin is geographical. You see, there are very few ideas that are universally considered bad. Even something like murder is often down to intention, it's down to interpretation. So it's really, as much as we're able to give the mind space to actually consider what our values are, what our priorities are, and how we want to live this one life that we have, is how best we can make choices. And back to that same word, if there's one word that I've banged on about all 8 days before this, is that keep the choice with you. Sometimes just knowing that choice exists can be very, very empowering, and can often offset like a scarcity mindset or I'm not allowed to have this sort of mindset. Knowing that it's a choice that you're making is a lot easier for the brain to sometimes come to terms with. Now, I chose if I had to list out what the reasons for eating plant-based. Now, what is the difference between plant-based eating and veganism? Plant-based eating is primarily to do with food, where you eat food that are of that originates from non-animal sources, right? So if you had to answer the question, is honey vegan or is honey plant-based? No, it's not, because it's from an animal source, right? So that's how you think of things which are plant-based or animal-based. Veganism is far more. It's much more a lifestyle question. Will you buy things that are from animal origin, like eating leather? I mean, like using leather products, and in fact, in its truest sense, it has a lot more. It has much wider implications. Like, one of the ideas I was recently exposed to is how devastating mining can be, for example, on entire ecosystems and on wildlife. Now, there is no end to how you can think about this. So I will say to you that wherever you are, again, inform yourself as best as you can. Keep in mind that everything that we're consuming, we are killing something. Yes, plant life is life as well. But again, we can always lean into more conscious, kinder choices, and different things might happen for us at different times in our lives. My priorities for eating plant-based really were about living more consciously, eating more kindly, certainly with as limited impact on the planet as possible. And again, if I had to judge myself in black or white terms, I always say that I'm one of the biggest offenders, because look at me, I have the air conditioning on behind me, I shop, I have 2 children, which is probably the worst thing you can do if you're worried about your carbon footprint. I mean, I'm joking, I'm not saying it worst as in like judgment, but so it's really not for any of us to judge somebody else's choices, is really the point that I'm trying to make. Wherever you are, make the best choices that you can. I find, so there are some, again, I'll be the first. I've talked about biases and confirmation bias before a lot. I'll be the first one to say that there's a lot of anecdotal information about how eating vegan makes you feel really clear in the head and clears brain fog. Anecdotally, I certainly have experienced that. Now, I don't know if it's because now I'm correlating this to my food choices, but I don't know if that also correlates to a time in my life when my stress was reduced, or when my habits got better, or my sleep got better, my hydration got better, or indeed just that I'd grown up enough that my mind was a lot more accepting of things around me. Now, so could I attribute it 100% to my food choices? I certainly cannot. And I'm not really aware of any conclusive studies to that effect. But when you look at a documentary like The Game Changers or What the Health, keep in mind that a documentary, while there are a lot of studies, especially in What the Health and Cowspiracy, its predecessors, there are a lot of studies that it relies on. Cowspiracy in particular is peer-reviewed by the World Bank. Always look for studies that have been referenced quite a lot, that have been peer-reviewed. So if you are curious, I can tell you that these are 2 that do have that sort of backing. But keep in mind that the spin that people will put on it is very often the worldview of the director or the producers. So don't be put off by any of these. Use these to inform yourself and make your own choices on this. So veganism, I will say, is not really a fad. We've always had this in existence. It's just that now we're better informed. On the one hand, that you don't need animal protein to get healthy. Much of that narrative, much of that belief was funded by, I think many of us know this now, was funded by the U.S. Dairy Association. So to promote milk drinking and eating more eggs and the dairy farmers. But in terms of can you build like a fabulous athletic body, stuff like that, I think you'll see that there are players in all fields of sports at the top of their game that do eat plant-based, and so it is possible. Keep in mind, your reality, what's your family situation like, how much time do you have, are you prepared to make meal prep? And again, even in plant-based eating, there are so many nuances, right? If you're concerned about the environment and you're going out there and eating a bunch of processed vegan foods that replace meats in your life, I'd say do it if you care about the animals, but if your focus is the environment, then maybe there are some trade-offs that you might be able to make, which might be kinder for the environment, depending on your priorities, right? Again, processed foods might come with they're not all bad again, but it's about reading the labels and understanding. If you can't put in the time to do that, then pick your best sources for this. In terms of religious beliefs, now this is a bit of a minefield, I'm aware. We have so many rules, religious beliefs, traditional bodies of medicine and science. There's things like don't eat fish with curd in some cultures, then don't eat on these days, don't even drink water on those days. To all of these, I will say that keep in mind that these rules were all created. If I speak philosophically, these rules were created in order to regulate social behavior, right? And they were created at a particular time. Now, if you had to evaluate, like, do I still want to go without drinking even a drop of water, when today the climate is probably 3 degrees hotter than it was, 20 years or 500 years ago, whatever it is, or my lifestyle is no longer that of a nomad, but I'm actually going from building to building in this sweltering heat. Even a 2% dehydration of the brain creates cognitive decline. So again, pick your priorities, see what choices are available to you, and make the choices that you would like to today. And when we make a choice, I've said this before as well, there is always a price to pay. There are consequences of that. We just have to tell ourselves that we are prepared to pay the price. So think some of these things through. With a calmer mind, you will actually be able to see options for yourself, and you'll actually be able to find a way to navigate this, right? So I have come across people that have been able to surmount incredible challenges to keep up with the choices that they've chosen to make, right? I have a dear friend who's a vegan mountaineer. I have another plant-based eater. She comes from a community that's very heavily meat eating. She's the only plant-based eating person in her family. She's managed to do it, live in a joint family. So it's about how you make these choices, and they have accepted her, right? So it's not even like we often fear being excluded from the tribe, but this fear is much greater than the chance of it actually being a reality. Our brain is hyper-tuned to look out for anything that could be a danger to us physically in survival, but to also that could exclude us from the tribe. But if we balance it out and weigh it out, you'll actually find that the fear is usually much greater than the reality of things. So that was, I don't want to go more into eating. Oh yes, if there's one thing I'll say, so a lot of the traditional schools of medicine and science, my take on this is that I'm sure there's a wealth of information there. Again, it was written 300 years ago. I can tell you that even science, our traditional science 300 years ago was so different than it was today, right? I love that open-minded scientists welcome traditional information and say, you know what, share this with us. And there are wonderful leaders from some of these schools of thought that actually open up their practices, that actually open up their theories to experimentation and the idea that, hey, listen, if we can bottle this up and help more people with this, why not? Okay? But if we're going to hold on to the belief that what was true 1,000 years ago is going to be absolutely true unchangingly even today, then I will say that perhaps we could open this up to a little bit of experimentation for ourselves and see if what source you would like to rely on as the most credible source for you today. All right, that's as much as I will say to that. A lot of, again, the miracle cures and things like that, if you see, is honey, this elixir of life. It's sucrose and fructose essentially, so and with a little bit of stardust perhaps. It does have some medicinal properties, but again, has it been sufficiently tested and evidenced? Not yet, right? But do we know that placebo effect does work, even knowing that an item of food or a pill is a placebo is actually quite still makes it work for us. So can we use that to our advantage, but perhaps in a kinder way, or perhaps in one that's more healthful for us than consuming all of that sucrose and fructose? Perhaps we can. So I'm not saying that the answers are easy, but I am saying to you that let's every day, if the world is changing, if we're learning more, let's lean into what seems to be more evidence-based. Okay, so typically for breakfast, I have, again, very similar combinations to what I have for lunch, meaning that I'm still trying to create a plate that's 45 to 50% vegetables, even for breakfast. Okay, because I know that this fills me up. I work a long day. My morning starts very early. I'm ravenous by then. So I pack in a lot of vegetables with my breakfast. It's the easiest way to fill your tummy up with very few empty calories. It's got a lot of moisture, insoluble fiber. Like I said, that acts like a lovely steel wool to clean out the insides of your of your intestines and including, I mean, all your body parts, like where the plaque and fat deposits are building up. That's as much cleansing as you need. We don't need to do any kind of special detoxing beyond that, right? Just eat food that's rich in fiber. I'll eat any carb for breakfast. So whether it's a traditional Indian breakfast carb, keep in mind typically the way Indian breakfasts are served, it's a very high carb breakfast with chutney, which is again coconut and tempering, and the carb breakfast will usually have ghee in it again. So you're packing in a lot of calories, a lot of carbs, and not necessarily enough of the vegetables and the protein. So rule of thumb always will remain that 45 to 50% of your plate is vegetables, 25% protein, 25% carbs. Dinner, I pretty much follow the same rule again, except that I reduce the amount of carbs I have, because I'm aware that these creep up during the day, and at my age I probably don't need as much. So I will go easy on the carbs if I do want to or I'll eat like carb heavy vegetables. So I'll eat like sweet potato or regular potato, cauliflower. All of these are quite filling as vegetables, and they do have carbs in them, but then I'm not additionally adding roti or pasta or rice to it. That's about as much specialty foods as I eat. In terms of snacks, I love to explore and discover new kinds of snacks. I always try and make the easiest kind of snacks to have are vegetables, fruit, and unprocessed snacks, right? So I love to eat like the green chana that they serve, the green chana chaat that they serve on the roads. Regular chaat, keep in mind, again, becomes very carb heavy and has a lot of extrusions, deep fried. You can make it so much healthier by making it at home. Add a lot more sprouts to it, vegetables to it, tomato, coriander, onions, lemon. And it becomes that much healthier. And then a little bit of extrusion, a little bit of save and the farsan or whatever, it's not going to kill you. Nuts, again, small quantities, and I know they can be very, very easy to overdo. So I make sure I take a very tiny portion of them and I eat it very mindfully. Do I have any other kind of snacks? Yes, I do eat banana chips. I do eat regular potato chips. But again, because I know how addictive they can be, and they're hitting all of the pleasure centers in my brain, and the bliss point has been obviously matches the bliss point of my brain. I make sure again that I take a very small serving and I sit and I consume it mindfully, and I try not to reach out for more. Alcohol, very little, again, because I want to drink consciously. I'll pour myself like half a glass of wine rather than a full glass. You can savor it over a long, long time, and again, lean into the deeper enjoyment of conversation that you're having, or a good book that you're reading along with it. That's about as much as my food intake revolves around. I'll have the occasional small piece of chocolate. Again, one tiny square can be savored so mindfully, and you'll get all of the enjoyment out of it, and everything else will be the law of diminishing marginal utility, right? We'll be eating that lot extra. Don't feel the need to be a garbage bag for food. Your body is not a garbage bag any more than it's a temple that needs to be, prayed to and given only whole, given only pure foods or whatever. You can have fun with food, but also to treat your body with respect and kindness. I know we're over time today. My God, how the time has passed. And I will very quickly tell you what my lunch is. It's really more of the same. But today, look at the number of vegetables that have made their way on my plate. Unfortunately, none of which I'm able to identify today. Again, more of the cucumber, green mango salad. This time we've put in mint leaves and basil leaves. There's a dal here that has palak in it as well. There's this vegetable is beans, potato, tomatoes. This is elephant yam. Again, there are a lot of vegetables that seem like icky to us from childhood, but keep in mind that your tastes will change over time. Just because you didn't like it as a child doesn't mean that you won't be able to enjoy it as an adult. And I have a roti this time. This is not made with buckwheat or ragi. This is actually made with I'm so sorry, the name is skipping my mind right now. But, like I said, my grocer sent this to me and said, I gotta try it. So I did. I love it. Thank you for joining me. Tomorrow will be our last day in our 10-day series. I will be taking a lot of your questions. I had asked my lovely housekeeper, Manju Didi, to come and say hi today, but I see she's quite shy. Maybe I'll drag her into the video tomorrow to say hi to everybody. Have a great rest of your day. See you tomorrow at 1:35 IST. Bye-bye, everyone.